Good morning, ladies and no gentlemen, other than me. Welcome to our Wednesday morning Tanya Shir. It is Wednesday morning at 9:30 a.m. and today is the 11th day of Teves, or in the English calendar, December 31st, 2025, the last day of the Goyish year. We're studying Tanya. We're holding actually toward the end of Perek Hey of Tanya, and Perek Hey of Tanya speaks uniquely about the quality of studying Torah, specifically the mitzvah of studying Torah in a way which one intellectually understands what one is studying, right? As we learned last week, certain parts of the mitzvah of studying Torah can actually be fulfilled without understanding. Certain parts, in Allah it says, Torah shebechsav, if you read it even without understanding what it is that you're reading, then you fulfill the mitzvah just by reading the words. Torah Shebal Peh, it's not like that. Torah Shebal Peh, you always have to understand. But here in Perek Hey, the Alter Rebbe is talking about this sort of unique connection that's forged between a Jew and Hashem, but dafka specifically when it comes to the idea of understanding, the idea that the human mind grasps and understands, in this case, the Torah being the wisdom of Hashem. What's unique here is that in the words of the Zohar used the expression hu v'chachmasai echad, which means unlike by a human being, where we can differentiate, where we can divide between the human being and their intellect, different things. When it comes to the Rebbeinu Shalom, comes to the Eibashter, we say hu v'chachmasai echad. The Eibashter and his chachma are one. So when understanding Torah, which is Hashem's chachma, we are achieving a level of unity with Hashem that is not experienced with anything else. Even with the other fulfillment of mitzvahs, we fulfill the mitzvahs, we do what it is that Hashem said, but we don't understand. It's not necessary to understand the reason of the mitzvah or the significance of the mitzvah at all in order to fulfill it. In fact, some mitzvahs, we can't understand the reason, or in some cases, the reasons of the mitzvahs have not even been given. When it comes to Torah, the idea, the wisdom here, the significant quality of this level of connection between Hashem and the Jew is that the Yid actually understands it, and in this sense achieves a level of unity with Hashem that we don't have with anything else. To explain, again, I'm just summarizing what we learned in Perek Hey, to explain the unique connection that exists between the Yid and Hashem. But dafka, when it comes to the mitzvah of studying Torah, the Alter Rebbe elaborates at great length here in Perek Hey about what happens in general when a person intellectually masters something, or when a person intellectually involves himself in something, and how there is this fascinating unity where on the one hand the mind of the person is toifus, it grasps, it masters, it owns the idea, it contains it. At the same time, it's true to say that the idea grasps the mind of the person. It owns the mind of the person, which is why when you're thinking about one thing, you cannot be thinking about something else. And when you study something, you have to study it on its terms, right? When you intellectually understand something, you have to understand the truth of that thing the way it is. So it's like this sort of dual relationship where the mind grasps the idea and the idea grasps the mind. And Alter Rebbe says it's the type of unity that doesn't exist. What's the expression? B'hu yichud niflo. It's an awesome unity. There's no such unity found b'gashmis. When it comes to physical things, you don't ever find this type of a unity between the mind of a person grasping an intellectual idea and the intellectual idea grasping the mind of the person. You don't find this. It's uniquely with intellect, and when it's used by a yid, specifically by a nefesh alakis, to learn Torah, then you have this, and Torah again being the chachma of Hashem, which is one with Hashem, you have this additional layer, quality of connection between the yid and the Eibashter. Okay, in addition to everything else that we spoke, in addition to the neshama being a chelek hamim al mamash, in addition to the esespheres, in addition to the other 612 mitzvahs, etc., etc. Okay, that's where we're holding. The last thing we learned, if you have the lessons on Tanya, we're on page 96. or 94. The last thing we learned is that this is the reason why studying Torah is called Mozen LaNefesh. In the writings of Kabbalah, it's called Mozen LaNefesh, sustenance for the soul, food for the neshama. The Alter Rebbe says, just like when a person physically consumes something, physically eats, the food becomes part of their system in a pneumistic way, so too when a neshama studies Torah, there is the elokus, the godliness that nurtures the neshama in a pneumistic way. Actually, we're holding page 97, where the words V'zeu shekosa, this is the meaning of the pasuk, V'seroscha b'soich meyoi, and V'zeu shekosa v'seroscha b'soich meyoi. Okay, so before we move on, we'll finish Be'ezus Hashem Perek Hey today. I thought of another analogy, or another example of where you have this idea, the concept that what the Alter Rebbe is talking about over here, that all the other 612 mitzvahs of the Torah are inyonim makifim, which means, well, the translation is that the connection between the neshama and Hashem in all the other 612 mitzvahs is there, it's in existence, but the connection surrounds the neshama. In the case of learning Torah, not only does it surround the neshama, but it also permeates and penetrates the neshama. It becomes a pneumistic connection, which is actually the essence of what's written in Perek Hey in chapter 5. So to try to explain this, another way to explain this idea, what's unique, why we're making such a big deal out of this, that the neshama has to not just be surrounded by its connection to Hashem, but it also has to be permeated with its connection to Hashem. What is the unique significance, contribution of this idea? I thought of another example of how to explain it, and with this, we'll give the example, and Be'ezus Hashem will conclude the parak, and then we'll move on. Next week, in Be'ezus Hashem, we'll begin studying Parak Vav, chapter 6. Chapter 6, the Alter begins to talk about the Nefesh Abamis. Okay, so here's my analogy. It's from a halacha in Rambam. The halacha in Rambam, almost at the conclusion of the entire Rambam, which actually in just a couple of weeks, according to the Rebbe's planned system of studying Rambam, we're going to finish another cycle of Rambam. So towards the end, the Rambam talks very famously about Mashiach. And he talks about, what's going to happen when Mashiach comes, and who Mashiach is, the qualifications. He's going to be a descendant of David HaMelech, and he's going to build the Beis HaMikdash, and he's going to gather together all the Jewish people from around the world, etc. Very famous. The Rebbe with Kochzach, the Rebbe had a tremendous enthusiasm and excitement in these last two chapters of Rambam, and told us all repeatedly to learn it, etc. So among the things that the Rambam writes there is that a person is obligated, of course, to believe in the coming of Mashiach. And if a person does not believe in the coming of Mashiach, then it's not as if they're just missing sort of one detail, right? They believe in everything else. They don't believe in the coming. It's not as if they're missing one detail of Torah, or they're missing even something paramount in Torah. The Rambam says if a person doesn't believe in the coming of the Mashiach, he's a kofer, he's a heretic, he's a denier. He doesn't believe in all the prophets, and he doesn't believe in Moshe Rabbeinu, and he doesn't believe in the Torah. It's all worthless, the Rambam says. If you don't believe in the coming of Mashiach, then you don't believe in anything. Okay, which that itself is not so surprising. The Rambam lays out the 13 principles of faith. One of them is the coming of Mashiach, one of them is Tchias HaMesim. The idea of the principles of faith is that these are the 13 principles upon which all of Yiddishkeit stands. Without this, the whole edifice, the whole building collapses. That part's all right. It's a little bit difficult to understand why the coming of Mashiach is a principle of faith. Maybe it's not. I don't get into that now, but that part's relatively clear enough. But then the Rambam adds something which makes this particular passage in Rambam very confusing and actually very controversial, believe it or not. The Rambam says it's not enough to believe in the coming of Mashiach. You also have to be mechakel b'yoseh, which means you also have to anticipate. One is obligated to live with anticipation for the coming of Mashiach. Constantly. You have to constantly be at the edge of your seat waiting for Mashiach to come. Here I'll quote to the best of my limited memory. V'chol mi she'eino ma'amin bo, says Rambam. Anybody who doesn't believe in Mashiach, oy mi she'eino mechakel b'yoseh, or somebody who doesn't wait for Mashiach to come, who's not anticipating the coming of Mashiach, not only is he denying the prophecies of the other prophets, but he's a denier in the Torah and in Moshe Rabbeinu, everything. If you're not waiting for Mashiach, you're a kaifer b'Torah b'Moshe Rabbeinu. And of course, the commentators, the Rambam, jump out of their seats, figuratively. Why? If I believe in Mashiach, I have to also wait for him. And if I'm not waiting for Mashiach because I'm busy with other stuff, or I'm not eager for Mashiach to come for whatever reason. I like Golus, Chas v'Sholom, whatever. I'm a koifer b'Torah b'Moshe Rabbeinu. You want to tell me I'm not a good person? You want to tell me I'm not doing the right thing? Gesundheit, but a koifer b'Torah b'Moshe Rabbeinu, a koifer b'Torah, a heretic denier in all of Torah. But why? I believe in Mashiach. I'm just not waiting for Mashiach. The Rambam says no. You need both. You need to believe and you need to wait. And if you're missing either one, even if you believe but you're not waiting for him, you're a koifer b'Torah b'Moshe Rabbeinu. The commentators talk about this. Very difficult to understand. The classic sort of mainstream balabatish, I would say. In other words, the straightforward, simple explanation is that you don't inherently have to anticipate the coming of Mashiach. There's nothing unique about anticipating the coming of Mashiach. It's just that if you really believe in Mashiach, you'll obviously anticipate it. And if you don't anticipate it, means you don't believe. Right? If I tell you tomorrow morning, Be'ezus Hashem, you're going to make $100 million. So if you believe me, you're going to be eagerly anticipating tomorrow morning when you're going to make $100 million. And if you're not eagerly anticipating tomorrow morning $100 million, then either money is worthless, which it isn't, or you don't believe me. Right? So if you don't believe me, then obviously you're not going to be excited about tomorrow morning. But if you believe me, then you'll be excited. So this is the simple understanding. In other words, according to this, the pshat is not that there's anything inherently valuable about anticipating the coming of Mashiach as far as one's belief is concerned. In other words, we don't find, just to explain a little bit, we don't find with anywhere in the Torah that a person needs to be in a particular emotional state in order to not be a heretic. There's no such thing. Whether or not you're a heretic has to do with a person's belief system, has to do with what one believes and what one doesn't believe, things like that. But your emotional state, how you feel about something, is never an indication of your status as whether or not you're a heretic. One thing has nothing to do with the other. This is the only exception. When the Rambam says you have to experience something emotionally, otherwise you're a koifer b'Torah b'Moshe Rabbeinu. How do you explain this? So again, most commentators say simple, because if you believe in it, you're waiting for it. And if you're not waiting for it, it means you don't believe in it. But Chassidus explains that it goes a lot deeper. Chassidus says that it goes a lot deeper than that. The idea that we say a person needs to be machaka l'biyosei, a person needs to anticipate, wait for the coming of Mashiach, means that when we go through Yiddishkeit, when we go through everything that we do in our lives, it has to be imbued with the sense that this is all for a purpose. And it's not just conceptual, right? Conceptually, I believe that it's for a purpose. No. It has to be experiential. Everything that we do, everything that we see, everything that we hear, everything that we, every part of our existence, the Rambam is saying, every part of Yiddishkeit, right? The Rebbe would often stress that this is the reason why the Rambam puts it at the end of his Sefer of Halachas, which is Halachas that cover the entire Torah. And at the end, the Rambam says, by the way, just so you know, it's all for a purpose. If you don't understand that it's for a purpose, then you've missed the whole point of what this is all about, right? So in other words, imagine, there's many masholim that they give for this. I'll give you two quick masholim, right? Imagine a person is packing up to go on a trip, right? Packing up to go on a trip. So what do they pack food and they pack clothing, and let's say they're driving, they make sure they get themselves a good car, and they make sure the airs are filled with tires, the tires are filled with air, and they make sure the oil is changed, and they make sure the brakes are working, and they obsess for weeks and for months in preparation for this trip. And they know exactly when they're going to go, when they're going to set out. They're going to set out, v'mezakt on this particular day, and this particular time, and all the rest of it. And they even set up for themselves maps of the whole city, so they know every road and every alley and everything. And finally, when the person gets into the car on Tuesday morning and the day of the trip, you say to the person, "Nu, where are you going?" And the person says, I haven't decided yet. Not just I haven't decided yet. What are the options? I don't really know. And to tell you the truth, the person says, I never b'chlal thought about it. I never b'chlal thought about it. So, what do you mean you never thought about it? So, everything that you've been doing for the past few weeks, for the past few months, it's all a trip, it's a journey. What's the journey worth if you're not going somewhere? If you don't know where it is that you're going, then what's everything worth? And you've missed the point of everything. What's the point in having a car? And what's the point in having tires filled with air? And what's the point in packing yourself sandwiches and having maps of the whole city and knowing every street and every alley and every stop sign and every traffic rule and every and packing clothes and food and everything you need if you don't know where you're going? Not just you know where you're going. You haven't thought about it. So that's not a journey. That's stam obsession with stupidity. V'mazakt. Right, the Rabbi Yoel Khan was the Rebbe's chayzer. So Rabbi Yoel Khan used to say, imagine a soldier who trains at war, right? And he's trained and he's a sniper or a shooter or whatever, and they train him for months and for years, and he goes out to battle and he's shooting and fighting, and they say to him, what's the purpose of the war? And he doesn't know that the purpose is to win the war. So then what? So then you've missed the point of everything. This is the way, Al Kaponim in general, this is the way this particular passage in Rambam is explained. Where the Rambam says it's not enough to believe in the coming of Mashiach, but you have to be mechakel b'yosa. You have to wait for the coming of Mashiach. In other words, all in this sense, the Rambam is saying all of Jewish history, all of Yiddishkeit, everything, it's all a journey. But a journey only means something if you're going somewhere. Not just you believe that you're going somewhere, but you're actually actively involved in going there. If you're not actively involved in going there, the Rambam says you're a kaiver b'Torah Moshe Rabbeinu. You're not intentionally denying the Torah of Moshe Rabbeinu. You just missed the point of the whole thing. It's like getting into a well-oiled, well-maintained, expensive car with food and luggage and your whole family, and with maps of everything, and you have no idea where you're going. Not just you have no idea where you're going. Not just you have no idea how to get there. You have no intention of going anywhere. You're not planning on going anywhere. It's a joke. The whole thing is a joke. You have to be imbued with a sense of purpose of what it is that this is all about, because the Eibusher said so. And the purpose of what this is all about, in this case, the Rambam is talking about the coming of Mashiach. So why am I saying this? It's a similar kind of idea that the Alter Rebbe is talking about over here in Tanya. At least this is the way I understand it. All of Yiddishkeit, everything here, everything that we're doing in this world, everything that we experience, every aspect of our lives, it has a purpose. The purpose, again, is, as we're discussing over here, the purpose is Mashiach. Or a different way of wording the same thing. The purpose is a Yid experiencing their connection with Hashem. A Yid experiencing their own connection with Hashem. At which point, or what is, again, when Mashiach comes, then we'll experience it in its ultimate sense. But as long as we're here in Golus, at which point does a Yid get to experience on a conscious level their own connection with Hashem? When they study Torah. And I say, well, how's it different to every other mitzvah? It's different. Yes, it is different to every other mitzvah. Why? When I do another mitzvah, I'm also connected to Hashem. Yes, it's true. When we do another mitzvah, we're connected to Hashem, but we don't understand it. We don't feel it. We don't necessarily feel it. We ourselves are, so to speak, with every other mitzvah, we're guests in the mitzvah. We're not the masters of the mitzvah. When it comes to the study of Torah, we're the masters of the mitzvah. Why are we the masters of the mitzvah? Because now the mitzvah is that we should understand it. It's like when we teach young couples about marriage, right? So we talk to young men and we tell them, listen, you're going to have to deal with something called work-life balance, right? What's work-life balance? In order to make a parnasa, you're going to have to work many hours. many hours, in order to make a comfortable parnasa, in order to provide for your family as a Yid is supposed to, according to Torah, according to halacha. It's going to take a lot of work in one form or another. When you're going to come home at the end of the day, after working, please God, many long, successful hours, you're going to be exhausted. Your family is going to say, hey, we'd like to spend some time with you, right? We'd like to talk to you. We'd like for you to talk to us. You'll be tempted to say to your family, listen, I'm exhausted. I'm complete. I have no more koyach. The day's work, the stress is involved, emptied my kishkas of all my koyach. I'm working for you, right? The man is tempted to say, for instance, his family, I'm working for you. I'm providing for you. Do me a favor. Give me what I need. What is it? Lo mech gein schlafen. Let me go to sleep. Tomorrow I'll wake up in the morning and I'll go back and I'll go back to work and I'll continue providing for you. And we explain to the young men that that's not enough. That's not enough. You have to work and you have to provide. And then when you come home, as a rule, you have to be able to find within yourself the koyach and the mind space and the presence of mind to put all your stresses and all your concerns aside and spend, generally speaking, on a daily basis. Spend quality time with your family members. And the person says, but it's too difficult. I can't. I'm exhausted, too stressed out, right? Okay. Sometimes you can't, but as a general rule, you have to. So how, right? I have no time for my marriage. I have no time for my kids. I'm too busy. We say to the person, if you're too busy to spend time with your family members, then you need a head check. What's up, you need a head check. What is all this work for? What is all this work? What are you working so hard for? For what? In the end, for what? To provide for your family. No. So now it's time to provide for your family. Now you have to give them quality time. Now, in other words, this is what it's all about. Your family doesn't want you to be an ATM, right? Where you just provide for them and that's it. Your family wants to know that you're providing for them as a husband and a father. They want you to be present. Yes, providing for them financially is one of the ways, but it's only one of the ways that you're providing for them in order to have a healthy family unit. A healthy family unit needs everybody to be present. So when a Yid studies Torah and develops this type of relationship with the Eibashter, the hergesh ho'inyanim, the feeling here is that now I'm actually getting to experience what Yiddishkeit and what in other words, everything that we learned about until now. The Chelek HaLekami Mal Mamash, the Seichel, the Midas, the 612 mitzvahs, the Machshava Dibur Maisa, everything reaches a crescendo. It reaches its grand finale, if you will, in this idea, in this mitzvah of learning Torah. Where now the Yid gets to experience this connection to the Eibashter in such a way that the Yid actually understands it and feels it and can, again, every person as much as they can, but in a way that the conscious mind grasps and understands and can articulate. Ish kefi sichlo, as Alter Rebbe keeps repeating over and over again. Each person according to their mind, according to their understanding, as much as they can understand. Studying Torah, understanding Torah, is understanding Hashem in a way where the mind of the person is actually empowered to understand this. Okay, now we have to add one more point. This is because this idea that when a person studies Torah, they understand Hashem. Now you say, you'll ask right now, how can a person understand Hashem? Can a person understand Hashem? Of course not. Unless Hashem allows himself to be understood by a person, by a Yid. Does Hashem allow himself to be understood by a Yid? Yes. That's Torah, where Hashem has taken himself, his own chokhmah, his own essence, and put itself into Torah for a Yid to understand. Okay, last point. This is true with all Torah. This is true with every aspect of Torah. This is true with Gemara. This is true with Halacha. This is true with Shulchan Aruch. This is true with Rambam. This is true with This is true with Apostle Chumash. This is true with everything. How much more so is it true when it comes to learning Chassidus? Why? How can I say that? What's the difference between one section of Torah and another? The difference is because in all other elements of Torah, when you learn Rambam and you learn about the halachas of Trumas and Maestris and all the rest of it, so of course it's Hashem's Chachma. But it's Hashem's Chachma as Hashem's Chachma is enclosed in the laws of Trumas and Maestris. in the laws of Shemitah v'Yovel, in the laws of a person who borrows money, in the laws of Moed Mikzas, whatever the case may be. But when a person learns Chassidus, when a Jew learns Chassidus, that's Pnimius HaTorah, that section of Torah that actually speaks about Hashem, now the idea that the person actually understands it, now Hashem's presence in the person's mind is in a revealed way. Right? It's like a woman will say to her husband at the end of the day, she'll say to her husband, listen, I need you to spend some quality time with me, right? There's something I want to tell you. All right? So she'll tell him something about an experience that she had that day that is important to her, that she wants him to understand. Hashem helps, he puts away his phone, he invests the time with her, he actually understands it. The woman feels she was understood by her husband. And the husband says to his wife, I have something I need to share with you, right? She puts away all of her distractions, she listens, she understands what he says. The husband and wife feel understood by each other. Yes, beautiful. That's true no matter what the husband and wife are talking about. But every now and then, the husband and wife need to sit down and talk about their actual relationship, need to actually talk about themselves. Where the husband needs to say to his wife, or the wife needs to say to her husband, there's something about myself that I want to tell you, that I want you to understand. Now, when the husband and wife understand each other about something they're talking about on a personal level, of course that takes the relationship to the next level. That's much more powerful. So all of Torah is the Eibishter's Chachma. All of Torah is Hu v'Chachmas Yechad. The Eibishter is Chachma one. But in Chassidus, it's that section of Torah in which Hashem reveals himself in a revealed way. In general with Chassidus. And Chassidus Chabad is that this should be understood in a person's mind. So this idea is strongest when it comes to the study of Chassidus. Okay, I'm on page 97 or page 95. We will, Be'ezus Hashem, study the end of the parak. The pasuk says, quote, "V'seiroscha b'soich me'ay." David HaMelech, on behalf of every Yid, says to the Eibishter, "You, Rabbanu Shloim, your Torah is in my intestines. Now, why would a person say that about the Torah? The Torah is my intestines. What does that mean? Shekoseh Beitz Chaim Shar Mem Daled Peragimel, as is written in the writings of the Arizal, called Eitz Chaim. Shar Mem Daled Peragimel. Shalavushe Anashamas Began Eden Heina Mitzvahs. When the Neshama goes up to Gan Eden, just like in this world, every human being has three needs: food, clothing, and a house. Mozen, Lavush, and Bayis. So, to an Aruchniistic sense, also a person has these. There's these three elements. There's Mozen, the spiritual food, the spiritual clothing, and there's a spiritual house. So the Arizal writes, Shalavush, and even in Gan Eden, a neshama also has mozain, food, and garments. Even the Arizal writes this. Even in Gan Eden, a neshama has food and clothing, and a house. The house is Gan Eden. What's the food and clothing? So the food. So the food and clothing. What's the food and clothing of the neshama in Gan Eden? Shalavushay and neshamas began Eden neina mitzvahs. Va'Torah hi amozn leneshamas she'oska b'olam hazeh b'Torah lishma. The Arizal writes, you know what is the food and the clothing of neshamas in Gan Eden? The clothing of the neshamas in Gan Eden comes from the mitzvahs that we fulfilled while we were alive in this world. And the food of the neshamas in Gan Eden comes from the Torah that we learned in this world. Again, Arizal. Clothing for the neshama in Gan Eden comes from the mitzvahs, the other 612 mitzvahs that we did in Olam Hazeh. And the food for the neshamas in Gan Eden comes from the Torah which we learned in this world. What does it mean? Exactly this idea. 612 mitzvahs provide clothing, meaning the connection to Hashem is makif. Torah is pnimi, is internal, right? Torah is digested on the inside. Torah is digested by the person internally, and therefore the Torah provides food for the neshamas she'oska b'olam hazeh b'Torah. The Arizal adds that when the neshama studies Torah, has to study it b'Torah lishma. What's lishma? Lishma means not for any ulterior motives, as the Alter Rebbe will say. What does it mean lishma? Hainu kedei lekasher nafshe laHashem. What's lishmo? Lishmo is when a yid studies Torah for the purpose of connecting themselves to Hashem. Each person according to him as much as they can understand. The Rebbe once asked a chassid to prevail upon another chassid to grow a beard. Right? The Rebbe said to him, go and speak to so-and-so. Listen. Can you close that door? I should have closed the door. The Rebbe, thank you. The Rebbe asked one chassid to prevail upon another chassid to tell him to grow a beard. Go tell him that a beard is, it brings down Hashem's 13 attributes of mercy, that a beard, chveis, will bring you all sorts of brachas. Go and talk to him about it. I once heard who the names were. I think I remember, but I don't want to say in case I'm going to be misquoting. But anyways, this is the story. But the Rebbe said, go talk to him about growing a beard. The Rebbe said, don't say that it's coming from me. In other words, Chassid shouldn't say that the Rebbe sent him. Just go talk to him about a beard. Say that. So he went and he finds the guy, Bafabrenkin and Shul, whatever. He says, listen, I want to talk to you. Yeah. He says, I think you should think about growing a beard. Yud Gimel Midas Harachamim, bring down Hashem's brachas, all sorts of wonderful things for you and your family. So the guy looks at him, are you serious? Yeah, I'm serious. He says, you know what I think? I think you should start minding your own business. I mean, for God's sake, did you just come over to me and tell me to grow my beard? What do you know about my life? What do you know about my marriage? What do you know about my struggles, about my internal struggles, my external struggles? You do know, you don't know. I mean, you're telling me to grow up? Really? Like, what in heaven's name? Go get a life, man. Go get a life. No, listen, a beard, leave me alone. Kitzer, he tried once, he tried twice, he came back to the next day. He said, listen, I'm starting to get some seriously worried about your sanity. Is everything okay? Go away and leave me alone. Anyways, he got nowhere with the guy. So he comes back to the Rebbe, he reported, listen, he said, Rebbe, I did not succeed. I couldn't get him to grow the beard. He said, but he doesn't understand. I feel like I should comb my beard while I'm telling the story. He said, but he doesn't understand why I'm talking to him about a beard. He doesn't, what's angefallen? What is going on here? He said to the Rebbe, if I tell this chassid that you, the Rebbe, want him to grow a beard, you'll see the beard will sprout out on his face, faster than you can say Yechi HaMelech. I mean, he'll start growing the beard immediately. The Rebbe said, no, don't tell him. And if because of that he cannot prevail upon him to grow the beard, Zol Zayin Nish, then no beard, finished. So the chassid, obviously not wanting to be chutzpahdik, but he was struggling with this. Like, why? This will, Rebbe, he'll do it for you. Not just for you. He'll do it when he hears that you're personally invested. The Rebbe said no. Why? This is the lashon, the way I heard the story. The Rebbe said, if you tell him that I, meaning the Rebbe, am invested here that he should grow a beard, the Rebbe said, of course he's going to grow a beard, but it's not really going to be his beard. The Rebbe's lashon was, the Rebbe said, it will be my beard on his face. I want him to grow his own beard. Meaning what? Meaning, the Rebbe is saying, I don't want him to grow a beard or to take upon himself this additional thing because he was told to. It's called, in Chassidus, we call this milamayla. Milamayla means from above because this is what he has to do because the Rebbe's invested. No, the Rebbe said, I want him to be motivated personally. I want him to be internally motivated. Right? I want him to feel it. The Rebbe said, we can't do that if he's hearing that this is what the Rebbe wants. In other words, he knows that the Rebbe wants it, of course, but to hearing that the Rebbe is personally invested, he's going to throw this off. And the Rebbe wanted the motivation, again, in the language of Chassidus, we call this to be much more pnimiistic. Another example, by the way, of the same idea. It's all examples of the same idea, but another example of the same idea we're coming now from Hey Tevis, right? Which is the Rebbe and the Chassidim's victory in court over the Sforim. So one of the Hey Tevis stories is that at one stage the Rebbe met with the attorneys. In preparing the arguments and in the court case, the Rebbe met with the attorneys. And the Rebbe was explaining to them how he felt the case should be argued. And these people are, they're not chassidim, they're attorneys, they have their own opinion. So the Rebbe and the attorneys are sort of discussing this thing back and forth and how to present it and what to say and what not to say, etc. So at some point the Rebbe said to them like this. The Rebbe said, I want you to do what it is that I'm saying, not as chassidim. I want you to do what it is that I'm saying as attorneys. In other words, I want you to see the wisdom, not to follow me b'Kabbalah soil. I want you to see the wisdom in what it is that I'm saying. The Rebbe says as attorneys. And in the end, this expression becomes very indicative of the whole victory of the Danotzach, where the Rebbe wanted that a legal Goyish court, in legal terms, should understand what's a Rebbe, should understand understand how this works. That's what the Rebbe wanted. It's a similar kind of idea over here. We want that the neshama of a yid, as it experiences its existence as a finite, limited being, living in Olam Hazeh, as we sit here, we should learn a Perek in Rambam, we should learn a Siman in Shulchan Aruch, we should learn a Daf Gemara, we should learn a Perek Tanya, and we should be able to understand the Lakus. And to do so lishma, meaning to do so for no other purpose other than to understand Hashem. Hashem. This becomes the sustenance for the neshama even after it goes into Gan Eden. Okay, conclude. Food is pnimistic. Food is internal. Levushim are makif, meaning in levushim it's the way levushim means it's again in the Rebbe's lashon it would be the Rebbe's beard on the person. That's called makif, meaning it's the Rebbe's beard. The Rebbe's beard is carrying the person, right? Mazin is pnimi, like you say. Some people wear clothes. Some people wear clothes. Sometimes the clothes wears the person. What's the difference? What does it mean? The person wears the clothes wears it. Depends what's the ikar. Depends what the moment. If the person is taka, the master of their clothing, then the person is wearing the clothing. If the person is subservient to the clothing, then the clothing is wearing the person. And therefore, our rabbi said, therefore the Chazal said that the mitzvah of Talmud Torah is equivalent to all other mitzvahs. It doesn't just mean it's as great, it's equivalent. Because all other mitzvahs, like we're learning, are just levushim. They're just garments, they just surround the nefesh. The Torah is food, v'gam levush. The Torah is both. The Torah is mazain and the levush, for the nefesh who learns it, who understands it, who masters it, and is enclothed in it. How much more so when he doesn't just learn the Torah in thought, but also as we're supposed to, when we study Torah, we're supposed to articulate the words verbally. We also have the advantage of learning Torah. The quality of learning Torah has both the quality of understanding as we're learning. It has the quality of mislabish bo, biyun of limuda, meaning where the neshama loses itself, loses its sense of self in the intellectual pursuit. It has the advantage of all other mitzvahs and experiences a connection, especially when he articulates it verbally, in this sense, reaches the climax of the neshama's connection to the Eibishter in every way, in every aspect possible that the Eibishter gave us. Okay, this concludes Perek Hey. Next week in Mitzvah Hashem we'll begin Perek Vav, because all of this is the Nefesh Elikis. The Alter Rebbe will say that the Eibishter made Zelu Mazeh also Likim. The Eibishter made for everything in Kedusha. The Eibishter made an equal and opposite force in Klippa. So, in opposite, if this was all we'd have, then the Nefesh Elikis would burn with Ava V'yira, love and fear of Hashem, and study Torah, and everything would be gavaldik. But the Eibishter, in his infinite wisdom, also gave us a Nefesh Abamis, and the Nefesh Abamis wrestles the Nefesh Elikis on every level, or on almost every level. This creates the battleground for the battleground of our existence. We're constantly wrestling between the Nefesh Elikis and the Nefesh Abamis. All right, we continued Be'ezus Hashem.